Hey there, fellow educators, and honestly, anyone who's ever wondered what would happen if we actually listened to teachers for once. I'm Leah Cleary, and this is If Teachers Ruled the World. You know, after 25 years in the classroom, I've learned that teaching isn't really about having all the answers. It's about being brave enough to ask the right questions, and maybe, just maybe, admitting when we have no idea what we're doing, which, let's be honest, happens more often than we'd like to admit. So grab your coffee, or whatever, and let's talk about the real stuff, the messy, imperfect, sometimes beautiful reality of what it's like to shape young minds while trying to keep our own sanity intact. Because if we're going to change the world, we might as well be honest about what that actually looks like. All right, let's dive in. Hey friends, I want to tell you about the day before my birthday this summer. My sister has been evil, a tyrant all summer long. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning, she gets me on FaceTime when I want to stay in bed, it is summer, and forces me to work out. She makes me do strength training. You see, I get cardio, you're moving, you can listen to podcasts, you can listen to music, but strength training, you just kind of have to focus on what you're doing so you don't rip your shoulder out of its socket, which I have done before. I think it's called nurse's elbow or something like that. But she's still making me do it. You see what I mean? She's a tyrant. Well, I overslept just a little that morning, the morning before my birthday, and texted her saying, hey, I'm going to be just a little bit late. And she said, hurry. I had forgotten, believe it or not, that AP scores were coming out that day. I hadn't had my coffee yet. It was early, and I don't function without my coffee. I was bleary-eyed, couldn't focus. But I got a text from one of my colleagues, a teacher at my school, with a screenshot of her AP scores. They were really good. I was super proud of her. You see, I am department chair of social studies, and this was AP psychology. And yeah, you gotta know, I was very proud. They were some good scores. This was her first time teaching it. And I felt, well, I'll go check mine. I knew that mine weren't going to be the same as hers, but we all know how difficult it is not to compare ourselves to other people. So I was already set up to do that. See, she and I have different demographics that we teach. My students are younger. This is for most of them their first AP course. Hers are upperclassmen, it's an elective, and most of them have taken multiple AP classes at that point. Now, that's not to diminish what she did. I really, really am not trying to do that because she is absolutely amazing. And those kids, they didn't teach themselves. That's just to say that we are in two different boats. I cannot expect the same results. But I was so out of it because I hadn't had my coffee yet. I think I might have been feeling a little vulnerable because I was about to be yet another year older. I pulled open my computer, went to College Board, and looked at those scores. Guys, the numbers hit me like a gut punch. I'm not sure why, because it was what I was expecting. But yeah, it surprised me that it hit me like that. I think it was because one of my classes in particular scored pretty low, and that made me feel bad. But if you look at the individual students, there were tons of improvements made this year. But I just started crying uncontrollably. All I could think was, oh, gee, this can't be healthy. I got on my workout with my sister because she, of course, kept calling and was kind of going through the motions. See, she's not a teacher, so she didn't really understand what I was feeling. I mean, you can't understand this stuff unless you're a teacher, right? So she didn't really understand, and that's okay. I don't really understand what she does, to tell you the truth. I did the workout, finished it, and afterwards just kind of realized, man, I'm sad. Yeah, it took me that long to realize that despite all the tears. Coffee is very, very important to me. I don't know why it's affecting me this way. And so I started really looking at it. This was kind of the genesis for this podcast, to tell you the truth, because I thought, well, goodness, if I'm feeling this, I know I'm not alone. And this isn't a good way to feel. We pour our everything into this job most of the time, and sometimes the outcome just isn't stellar. So what do we do then? Let me give you some context about my students. When I say tons and tons are taking AP World now, that's obviously an exaggeration, but our numbers have doubled in the past couple of years. We've had to hire another teacher to come in and help with the class because we've had to split it into more sections than I can handle on my own. A lot of kids are being put in there by default without really realizing what they're getting into. These are 10th graders. This is their first history course in high school, and we tend to teach it differently than they do in middle school. They're learning how to be history students. They're learning how to write argumentative essays, how to analyze sources critically, how to put things into context, all of the historical thinking skills, all of these things. There's so much. Plus, world history has a lot of content. Add to that we don't have a 9th grade social studies class at my school, at least not until this year. The argument is that they don't need it because they have English in 9th grade. And yeah, there's overlap as far as literacy is concerned, but the two disciplines are approached very differently in a lot of ways. There's a lot more content to learn in history. Argumentation is the writing style of the day. They don't focus on that as heavily in English. They just don't. And speaking as a former English teacher, I can say that the way we construct things like thesis statements and introductory paragraphs, I could go on, but I know it's just very, very different. So when I say students getting their scores up to a 2 is hard-earned, that is no reflection on their intellect at all. I could not have done what they're doing when I was in 10th grade, and I didn't. But they're also learning how to be social studies students at this point. I can think of one specific student whose journey really illustrates what I mean. This child, for the entire first semester, was just struggling and so lost. I would call home, I would try to get him in for tutoring. He never came, and there are multiple reasons for that. First of all, these are 10th graders. Their parents work. They have to ride the bus. But I would work with him in class and whatnot, and he just wasn't getting anything. But then second semester, it all started to click. It all just started to fall into place. His scores started going up. His writing improved just exponentially. We do FRQs, free response questions, once a week in my class, whether it's an SAQ, DBQ, or LEQ, the alphabet soup of AP essay, and I just saw tremendous growth from him. So yeah, those 2s for a lot of those kids were hard-earned, and I'm proud of them. But here's the thing. Knowing all of this intellectually and still feeling bad about those scores, that's the problem. Where does that come from? It takes me back to a conversation I had at the AP conference in Seattle a couple of years ago. There was a big push for removing the gatekeeping from AP classes. Open the gates, let all the students in, no gifted and GPA requirements. They had research to show the improvements that students have when they take at least 1 or 2 AP courses in high school. There was one session I was going to go to about how to get all of your students to get 4s or 5s, but at the last minute, I went to an AI panel instead because this was when generative AI was brand new and I just couldn't resist. Well, one of the heads of College Board was on that panel, and I was talking to her afterwards. I told her about the session I missed, and I said, I'd love for all of my students to have 4s or 5s. What a dream. And she said, well, that's not what we want. Her tone was very matter-of-fact, and she seemed to think it was pretty funny that there was even a session called that at the conference. She seemed a little shocked because I think that harkens back to the way AP has been done in the past with a lot of gatekeeping. She was telling me about the importance of getting 1s up to 2s and 2s up to 3s and about what AP courses can do for the students. I know College Board has a vested interest in getting more students through the gates. Those exams are not free, but I've seen it happen. I really believe it. I know that my students have gone on to be more successful in college, whether they made a 2 or a 5, just for having sat in the AP course and done the rigorous work, persevered through all the difficult things they have to do. That conversation reminded me of my own 6th grade year. I was excited because I was understanding math for the first time and really loving it. I had never considered myself a math person. I fell into a lot of those traps that girls fall into, thinking I'm no good at math, I'm no good at science. My 6th grade year, I went to my teacher because I was really loving it and really getting into the whole pre-algebra thing. I asked her, "Can I be in the advanced math class?" She said, "Let me check on that." So she called me over a couple of days later and said, "Well, you're doing well in this class, but I went back to your 3rd grade test results and I don't think so. You're just not advanced math material." Oh, well, I'm sure she didn't say it like that, but that's what my 6th grade brain heard. And it crushed me. After that, I just thought, I'm not advanced math material. I stopped trying really hard in math, and then I stopped really enjoying it. So I think that gatekeeping can have a profound impact on our students, especially because we all develop at such different rates. And I think that's where College Board is going with this. Every student develops at different rates. How did that conversation sit with me as I walked away from it? Of course, College Board wants to increase enrollment. Their tests aren't free, but because of my 6th grade math shutdown, it felt right to me. I thought, yeah, we're doing the right thing. My scores might not look as impressive, but we're doing the right thing. We're giving these 10th graders a chance. And their research, from College Board admittedly, backs this up. College Board has found that students who completed just one AP course and the accompanying exam were 3 percentage points more likely to graduate from college within 4 years. Students who took an AP exam and scored 3 or higher were 6 percentage points more likely to graduate on time. But here's the kicker. Even AP exam scores of 1 or 2 predict better college outcomes than not taking AP at all. The biggest gains were seen in students taking the first or second AP course, exactly my demographic. These kids are building skills, learning how to be students, developing resilience. That matters more than any single test score. But knowing this doesn't make the emotional hit any easier. You see, my ego is involved, but there's something else going on here. And there's research on that too. Studies show that perfectionism among teachers is incredibly common and it's increasing. About 20 to 35% of the general population displays perfectionistic tendencies, and it's been steadily rising over the past 50 years. For teachers, perfectionism is what one researcher called a career killer that will rob you of your joy. It drives us to meticulously grade everything, over-prepare for every class, volunteer for too many activities, and beat ourselves up when things don't go perfectly. And things will not go perfectly. The thing is, perfectionism isn't rational. It's emotional. And it often comes from unrealistic expectations that we place on ourselves, sometimes influenced by what we see others sharing about their successes. Which brings me to something I want you to understand if you're listening to this in your car, maybe relating a little bit to this story. Those classrooms you see on Pinterest, they're cherry-picked. The teachers sharing the great things they do on Instagram and TikTok, those are highlight reels. Reality is messier. Nobody's perfect. It sounds cliche to say it's the caring that matters, but caring is a huge part of it. But the willingness, I think, to understand that there are no magical superhero powers about teaching. We're dealing with people, and when you deal with people, you can't expect perfection. That's just isn't the way the world works. What I want for you tomorrow is to be kind to yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. And don't be embarrassed when your students maybe don't do as well as you think they should. Everybody is learning. You're learning. Your students are learning. It's not over. Here's my call to action for you. We're not curing cancer here, all right? I had a teacher tell me that a long time ago, and I remind myself of that all the time. What we do is important. Yes, what we do is very important. We're working with these kids, and in a lot of ways, we have their futures in our hands. But in a lot of ways, we're just practicing. It's a practice. The whole job is a rehearsal. It's not going to be perfect. So yeah, set goals. Goals are good. Smart goals are better. But it's not the end of the world if you don't make them. Distance yourself from that. Give yourself compassion. As long as you're doing your best, that's all you can do. Teaching is a craft. We hone that craft over time. It is not a superpower. It's a profession that we go to school for, usually have several degrees in, and we continuously have professional development for. We read, we research. It's a craft we're honing. I don't want to be part of the conversation that makes teachers feel bad. I want to be part of the conversation that makes teachers feel less alone and more resilient. So tomorrow, when things don't go perfectly, and they won't. Remember that you're not alone in feeling frustrated or disappointed. Remember that your students are learning, even when the scores don't show it. Remember that you're practicing, you're growing, and you are enough. Thanks for listening to this first episode of If Teachers Ruled the World. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Follow this podcast, throw a review my way, and share it with a teacher friend who needs to hear it. And remember, you're doing important work, especially when it doesn't feel perfect. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other. That's it for this week on If Teachers Ruled the World. Be sure to subscribe, share with a teacher friend, and join the conversation at leahcleary.com. Until next time, keep ruling your classroom and rewriting the rules.